Okay. Good evening, good evening, good evening. You know what? This. Whew. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right. So for today, we're going to be over here. Uh, since I got in trouble over on TikTok. So, whew. We'll be going through chapter 16, Anti-Blackness is Global. Unfortunately, it is. Oops. Hmm. One moment. Because obviously, I can't see. There we go. All right. Chapter 16, Anti-Blackness is Global. You don't know what you don't know. You can't lead where you don't go. If you don't read, you won't grow. I know. It can feel hard to work together. It can be hard to fight to make our lives better, but it's worth it. We have so many hidden commonalities, but we can unearth it. If we choose to trust each other before suspicion, if we choose to take America's promise and give it a new rendition, we can show the world how to multiply unity where there's division. Where people want to subtract our culture, you can bring addition. We can bring acceptance where there's derision. To lead or to follow, what's your decision? We need to fight all forms of hate with surgical precision. But we can only do that if we really want to heal, to be upstanders and not bystanders, kicking down doors of hate with our heel. When I accept you and you accept me, I love how that feels. So let's commit to love and learn about one another for real. And that is the opening poem for chapter 16, Anti-Blackness is Global. Hey, 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 everyone. For today, because I was bad on TikTok. Uh, our Wednesday reading is going to be over here. I didn't take it to Zoom because there is a new series with a different book that will be happening, so I didn't want to confuse people. And in that way, anybody who misses it, they can come back and see this in real time here. The international power of ignorance and anti Black racism is global. In the early 2000s, I took a group of Black teenage dancers from Boston to South Africa for a tour I called Empowerment Through the Arts in partnership with the Origination Cultural Arts Center. It was 10 full days of learning dance, teaching dance, and learning about South Africa's tragic history of apartheid. My parents involved us in the fight to end apartheid since we were children. I remember posting up signs in Boston to free Mandela as young as 7 years old, as well as learning about great activists like Steve Biko and others. I was taught that the fight to end apartheid was my fight too, as a Black person on this planet. While every day was full of impactful learning experiences, nothing prepared us for the hands on learning experience we encountered on one rainy Wednesday afternoon. Let's stick a pin in that because no matter where you go on the internet, there is consistently a diaspora war regarding Black people. Um, and most recently, it seems that Black people from the continent of Africa want to take shots, and Black people from the UK want to take shots at Black Americans. Why? Globally, we're all looked at the same. Globally, they see our skin as something to fear, as a hindrance. So why? Because the anti-Blackness doesn't just lie within Euro Americans. It does not just lie within people who have been accepted under the umbrella of whiteness. I need you to think about that. I need you to really soak that in. And when we discuss, you know, anti-Blackness and it being global, I need for people to understand that racism, bigotry, prejudice, anti-Blackness can be internalized. Just like white people who mistakenly find comfort in other white people with their racism can find out that that person is not a racist alongside them. Where Black people go believing that we're being communal with one another, sometimes we find out that's not a safe space for us. Y'all have seen Tim Scott. Y'all have seen Clarence Thomas. And do not fall into the trappings that because somebody falls for colorism, they also fall for racism. Some people are happy to be Black, but they're happy to be that adjacency to whiteness because even in the Black community, it gives them a status symbol. But let us continue. We decided to take a trip to the Apartheid Museum. Despite many prior visits to South Africa, I had never visited the museum. The museum captures the essence of that dreadful and inhumane experience. Unfortunately, my young daughter was in a fussy mood, which led my wife and me to finish our tour a bit early. While waiting on the bus, my sister Mwadi came out of the museum nearly in tears and signaled me to get off the bus. What she told me next will hopefully enrage you as much as it enraged me. It speaks not only to the lies about Black people told in the United States, but also lies told worldwide about the Black experience. Now, as we move on to this next part, I want y'all to remember something that I consistently tell you all. The United States is the Truman Show, live and in living color. What we see is curated for us to see. Until we could study and commune freely via the internet, what we learned, you see where I'm going. Well, let's keep going. While walking through the museum, there is a larger than life image of Black men being strip searched. Muadi noticed several white South African high school female students observing the photo. One of them said to her friends, "Wow, cute butts." She then proceeded to rub her fingers across the behinds of these men, much to the amusement of her friends. Muadi lost it. She spent the rest of her museum visit enlightening the girls about their ignorance, but these girls felt very free to continue with their boorish behavior. They called one of our Black students a dog and made symbols with their fist as if they were going to attack us. Once they got behind their chaperones, they began singing MC Hammer's "Can't Touch This." I thought I should have a word with the two white female chaperones of these 15 or so white high school female students. The story only gets curiouser and curiouser from there. We're going to continue, but I want to stop right here to point out the duality of issue that I have when it comes to commemorating certain things when it comes to Black people. Now, we know all over the world They have museums. They have turned places of torture and horrific moments of history into places of learning in the hopes that we do not groundhog that for eternity. But because no one globally will be truly open and honest about Black people and the Black experience, and they do not truly consult us, you have people making a mockery because nobody would host a cotillion or a wedding or a baby shower or rent them out as Airbnbs, a gas chamber, a concentration camp. But they do it with plantations here every single day. They are not allowed to revision and whitewash the Holocaust, but they will downplay apartheid and chattel slavery. They will wear these moments in time as a status symbol, as a costume, to go, well, it happened to us too. It happened to everyone throughout history. Really? Really? Did it? Did it? Let us continue. I politely asked the chaperone if I could talk to her about what had transpired, but she refused to talk to me until she got her girls behind the Black security guards from the museum. They fear us, but want to control us, but always want to use us as a shield against us. Mm. Once they were secure, she proceeded to tell me that what they did was no big deal. If it was no big deal, why did they need protection? And that the girl was just touching the behinds, not trying to stick her finger in the behinds. But regardless of the race, ethnicity, or nationality of a man, a boy, or male presenting individuals, if that was a real living, breathing woman, young girl, or femme presenting individual, or a photograph, a wax figure, anything, and that boy, that man, that male presenting individual did it, they would be up in arms saying that they needed sensitivity training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they would be correct. First of all, I need us to stop downplaying the assaults against men, period. Whether physical, emotional, mental, financial, sexual in nature, I don't care what it is. Stop downplaying it. Stop going, oh, well, it was this, it wasn't penetration. Oh, it wasn't this, it wasn't that bad, it wasn't. If we gonna say all men till no men, baby, don't become one of those women. By this time, my other sisters, Musal and Shaumba, were out along with one of my best friends, Malik, and, and a massive debate ensued about the teachable moments these chaperones had denied these students. They didn't deny them the teachable moment that they wanted them to have. I need you all to be completely honest about what goes on and why things go on. You need to stop saying that the systems are broken and that the moments aren't teachable. They are. They're just not teaching the same lessons. They're just not looking at systems in the same way. These systems are working the way that they wanted to, and they're teaching those girls exactly what they wanted to teach them. That they own us, that they are entitled to us. Animate, inanimate, living, or dead. Now, do not take me stating the facts as me agreeing with them. Just like I have to remind people all the time, they're activists for all sides of the equation. The moment was teachable. They didn't deny them the teachable moment. You all were just teaching two different lessons from two different books, from two different perspectives, for two different outcomes. The students in our care also started to leave the museum, and several were in tears. One of them tried to assault one of the white students, and we had to hold her back. You should not have. You should not have, because sometimes that lesson literally smacks you in the face. Mm-hmm. 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 And see, here's the thing. We always say aggression and violence isn't the way. Why? Why? They use aggression and violence towards us. I thought we were matching energy. We're matching energy all the way up into the point. Because what? You don't want to be viewed as a stereotype, baby? Let me tell you something. They're looking at you as a stereotype regardless. And they keep doing these things because they know there's going to be somebody to come in and intervene. See, we call them keyboard warriors, but that's not all that they are. Because they say something in public until they get knocked the fuck out. Then all of a sudden they have an awakening. They don't they don't want to be racist no more. They're delivered. It was at that point that all my attempts at diplomacy went out of the window, and I had some choice words for their group. You shouldn't have diplomacy to begin with. And I know some people will go, but Taz, I've heard how you take down people because I'm not really taking them down. I'm not even trying to educate them. I am delivering information to those who want it. So I'm going to do it in a manner that's palatable to me because I'm not going to downgrade myself. I'm not the slop for the hogs, nor am I the hog. And that's the thing. You talk about respectability politics and how you're not about it, but you need to realize how you're handling racist. You are beholding to respectability politics. You are still upholding their comfort. You don't want them to view you in a certain light because you are still holding them as a standard. Hold yourself as that standard. The white students and their chaperones were rushed to their vans. See, look who's being protected. Protected by South African employees of the museum, and quickly departed, but not before they could feel a small percentage of the black rage that those men must have felt being strip searched, just like black men in Boston during the Charles Stewart case, and having it photographed. These white students were all comfortable to thinkify the black men in this picture, and their chaperones condoned it. Would they have done something like this in the Holocaust Museum? I doubt it. But I can assure that if they did, my sisters and I would challenge them there too. That's a yes and a no answer. And let me explain why. Depending on the Holocaust Museum that they would have gone to, yes, there would have been people who would have been dehumanized and that would have lost their lives, that they would have thinkified as well. And why do I say that? There are some Holocaust museums that only focus on white Jewish people. There are other Holocaust museums and teachers of the Holocaust and historians of the Holocaust that show the spectrum of people that were sent to the gas chambers, to the concentration camps, that were dehumanized, that were killed in masses. And it is not just white Jewish people, because being Jewish is an ethno religion. You can be born into the religion, you can convert into the religion. That means you can be of any race, ethnicity, or nationality and be Jewish. And given how Hitler felt about anyone that of not of Aryan descent and not blonde haired and blue eyed, that eugenic standard that he didn't meet, but convinced other people that is the standard they should go for. Do you think black people were unscathed? Do you think anyone who did not fit under the Aryan eugenic standard umbrella of whiteness at the time went unscathed? Because you're looking at the umbrella of whiteness as it is today. The umbrella of whiteness has evolved and expanded over the years. Who is considered white today was not considered white then. And phenotypically were not white then. Because as I discussed yesterday, they're willing to move brown under the umbrella of whiteness. That will take some time because they want that brown to lighten a bit. They want some intermingling to go. This is why they're somewhat accepting of Mrs. Vance, Vice President elect's wife. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The ride back to our hotel was the worst part of the trip for the teenagers. Most of us were in tears, though our high school and college age youth were all from Boston. This was their first major experience with racism. No, this was their first international experience with racism. This was their first international experience with racism. This was the first time that they thought in a place dedicated to Blackness on paper, in marketing material, that they would have a safe space, that they would be respected as they were learning about a part of their global history. Categorize things properly. Don't placate. No stranger to a Klan mask or to myself. I was also incensed that going into a new millennium, the generation of young people were not fully aware of the fight against racism needed today. They were aware, you weren't. In a so called post racial society, who claimed it that? Oh, that's right. Those that wanted to be coddled in their racism and comforted in their racism, and you just fell for it hook, line, and sinker because they told you. You wanted to ignore your lived experience and the lived experience of those around you because how do you keep quoting all of these racially charged events within your lifetime and say things like this? As many stated during this time, when Senator Obama was running for president of the United States, all this talk of the past was no longer necessary because they wanted you to turn a blind eye to the racism that they were perpetuating out of one side of their mouth while the other side was telling you to look into the abyss and miss what they were doing and saying. Same thing that they always do. See, they don't change their tactics. They just don't pay attention to the fact that we're getting extended forms of media to chronicle this and to get the information from person to person. See, back in the day when we didn't have all these cameras, we couldn't put things out within the blink of an eye. They could tell you, oh, yeah, girl, racism is gone. You didn't hear? Yeah, my boy, we don't do that racism anymore. While they're constantly attacking and upholding and perpetuating and indoctrinating new people into their cult of racism every fucking second of every fucking day. Do you think a murderer is going to walk up to you and tell you that they're a murderer? Absolutely not. Did you think H.H. Holmes was telling people when they checked into his hotel they wasn't checking out? Not alive. No, absolutely not. They're going to tell you it's the greatest place on earth. They're going to tell you, oh, there's nothing for you to worry about here. The crime rate is down here. There's no murderers here. Get comfortable. The fuck? Especially when they're trying to sell, please, black and brown people, come into the United States and let us exploit your labor and let us increase the racism because we're going to vilify you every step of the way. But we're also going to secretly fight for you to be here and be a little bit comfortable so you can stick around and do all the shit that we're making sure our white citizens are too fucking dumb to do. Because we know the white people, we got to pay them fairly, and we don't want to do that. So instead of them being pissed off at us, they want to keep them as shitty as we keep you all, we'll have them fight with you. We've been doing it for eons. You know, Reconstruction and during the Great Migration, when we didn't want to pay them properly, so we convinced y'all to cross the picket lines that never really existed. And we had them coming after you all instead of us. Especially, today in this climate where one of us came after a CEO and, oh boy, was he one of us. That platinum spoon in his mouth. Shit. And the people like him. We're even trying to say fuck him to him. Say fuck. And they won't. What made those girls so comfortable in the shell of their ignorance? Why is it that? According to my friend and guide, legendary artist and activist Napo Mashiene, most older blacks, 20 and up, exit the museum in frustration, while most whites she sees leave the museum with smiles and probably wondering what they're having for dinner. Lastly, why is it that most of the youth of all ages, races, and nationalities leave the museum with a sense of indifference? Quite honestly, until that incident occurred, some of our own students were bored on this trip. Even some young Black South African students came out of the museum as if they were visiting a museum of Greek antiquity instead of a place representing their own parents' experiences. That has been a great that has a great deal to do with how they are taught their own history in South African schools, similar to what we experience in the educational system of the United States. Um, because you're not getting guides. You're not getting guides, and it's no longer standard that you come in tour groups and get guides. Most people aren't reading what's on the plaques. And white people are leaving that museum happy because they're seeing torture and the spoils of what their parents and grandparents did, and they're proud of it. They're happy. They get to live vicariously through them. They didn't get a chance to do it, but they wanted to do it. And when you're not explaining to people what's going on, a lot of those things are still going on. So even though it's not technically apartheid anymore, a lot of the things are still there. The strip searches, the profiling, they're used to it. So they're bored and not reading because they've already heard about it. They're still living it. It hasn't changed. A museum is supposed to tell you about what happened in the past so you can learn. That's still going on. And you're not connecting the dots for them to teach them how to make it go away, to teach them that there was a time that this didn't happen, to teach them that they can make it go away, to light that fire inside of them. And yes, they've heard their parents talk about it, but when they still have to live with the same fear, what? You haven't heard anybody teach them what they came from and why people want to stifle Blackness globally. Why people don't want to point out that Blackness is the global majority. They want to compartmentalize it down from country to country to country. Because when you talk about the numbers from country to country to country, we seem so small. We seem so disconnected. But when you talk about globally and you teach the history globally that unites all of us, woo, baby, woo, baby. Around the world, Black people are still being dehumanized based on lies told about us, and new generations of people are picking up on the hate. Hatred against Black people is on the rise, not only in the United States, but also in every country where extremism is on the rise or at least tolerated. Racism against Black people also persists in countries where white people are not in power, such as Brazil, where the largest number of Black people live outside of any country after Nigeria, because anti Black racism persists from their lighter skinned leaders and power. And this is where the colorism comes from. And that colonization drives colorism because there are countries that are predominantly Black. But that colorism and that, what I call the reverse one drop rule, where the governments, the systems in place will provide better treatment, better opportunity to those that have an adjacency to the complexion for protection. And they do it intentionally to keep the divide going. This is why you see some South Africans who come to the United States and will look at somebody like me as if I'm supposed to serve them. If you know, you know. In Chapter 1, I established the modern day racism was constructed in large part to justify slavery. It would be naive of us to think that there is any post racial country in the world, especially in a world where misinformation and disinformation about Black people is on the rise. If we do not prepare young Black people, especially for the world they are inheriting, they will be in for a rude awakening, just like our youth were in South Africa. Similar to what we witness today with the demonization of Black Lives Matter activists as terrorists, we see the anti-Black violence is increasing under the false notion that Black people are and will be violent, so preemptive actions are needed, even if it means murder. Because there were two terrorist acts as we entered into this brand new year. Okay? This year hasn't even been released from the hospital yet. Okay? It's mama's her hoo-ha ain't even had a moment to cool off. Okay? She ain't been monitored for 24 hours. And the two acts of terrorism, them folks didn't look like me. Black Lives Matter didn't send out an email saying that this is what we supposed to do. Hmm. Hmm. The attempts on then presidential candidate Donald John Trump didn't look like me. Didn't look like any shade of the Black community. The vast majority of mass shooters, even though they're trying to expand mass shooting to include other type of shooting so that they can, shift the profile, but the profile for damn near everything is not Black. I worked on campaigns to free Nelson Mandela and other political prisoners throughout Southern Africa as a child growing up in the 1980s and 1990s. I also remember that during that time that the African National Congress was viewed as a terrorist organization by many American politicians who embraced the racism of the white South African government. As much as we celebrate the late President Nelson Mandela, we should be mindful of the fact that he remained on the no-fly list in the United States even after he became president of South Africa. He stayed on the list as president for 5 years, from 1994 to 1999. Whenever he did appear in the United States, he had to get a special waiver to enter, as did all ANC members, even though they were the ruling party in South Africa. So, yes, a former Nobel Peace Prize winner and first Black president of South Africa had to obtain special permission to travel freely to the United States because of a racist, decades old policy of labeling him, the ANC, and other apartheid activists as terrorists, although many of us in America and around the world, they were freedom fighters. Anti-Black racism is global today because it is rooted in examples like apartheid era in Southern Africa. As Marcus Garvey said, if we do not know our history, we are doomed to repeat it. But here's the thing. You notice how they're saying those that opposed apartheid are the terrorists, not those that came up with it, not those that uphold it, those that want it to return, those that oppose it. Because right now, for some, right now, Elon Musk, the apartheid baby, the apartheid Annabelle child, okay, the apartheid animaniac, they love him. Now they're ticked off at him because he wants immigrants to come in to do skilled labor. He's now talking to the poor whites, and I'm saying poor whites in accordance to him. Like white people talk to all of us Black folks every damn day. And before you go with that, not me, I'm white, not a. If you're not a hit dog, don't holler. Plus, it's not a full moon. Are you teen wolf? Are you middle-aged wolf? If not, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. But I want you to pay close attention that anytime Black people stand up for themselves, we're deemed terrorists. We're deemed a problem. But not the people committing the actual terrorism. Because I remember people championing the IRA in Ireland, as they should. Like, hey, there's some things that they did. I agree with some things. Maybe I just don't know enough. That seemed like a leap. Y'all didn't have to go that far. But who am I to judge? I'm on the outside looking in. I'm window shopping this situation. I understand that. But when it comes to Black people, absolutely not. Huh. Because when the Irish were singing at the top of their lungs, Lizzie's in the box, no critique. Black countries that Lizzie's bitch ass incestuous family stole from started saying, you know what? Yeah, Ireland, let us join in with a chorus of Lizzie's in the box. Oh, that's disrespectful. How could you do that? Y'all fucking kids, each other, and stealing from the world, but we're the best. If you don't go suck a skeletal dick, the fuck? I, I, mm-mm. What the fuck? Are you the fuck? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mm-mm. No. Somebody else do it. Mm-mm. But I don't know about you, but I am thoroughly enjoying Elon Musk talk to fellow white people like they're lazy and they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and maybe go back to school. You don't like what we're willing to pay you, or the fact that we're just gonna, bring in some people that we know are, far more educated because, our mother's best friend's former neighbor from the third grade told us about Johnny over there from Istanbul, who, he's had a little bit of experience with this. And, I like his mom's pot roast. So I'm going to bring him on over here and I'm going to let him do this job. Oh, your child with the student loan debt? Oh, pish posh. We're not going to forgive that student loan debt. But, you need the experience. Maybe start in the washroom. Because, you poor whites, like, can we really trust you with like technology or agriculture? Can we? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, y'all thought y'all were gonna get those border patrolling jobs? Oh, I don't know if we can trust the poor whites down there. But y'all understand microaggressions now, huh, motherfucker? Now, hold on. Let's pull up my calendar here because we know your girl is not the best at dates. Okay, Sunday. Yeah. All right. Sunday. Sunday. If I can be good between now and then. Chapter 17 should be back over on TikTok live. If not, then join me here. Same time, same place. We're almost, how many chapters is in here? I think there's 20 chapters, I think. Oops, nope. There's more than 20 chapters. Okay, 23 chapters. Okay. So we're almost through. Yeah, so we'll do chapter 17 on TikTok, like I said. If not, then I'll come back over here. But my anti-racist journey for this chapter is Maudi Vijima Dabinga, and I will post that tomorrow just because there is currently a my anti-racist journey that just got posted today, as well as if you're following the Mann Act, it is currently on TikTok. When I close out here, I will also post it here so you have it in both places. But as always, thank you all for joining me. We actually got through that a little bit quicker over here. I don't know. But I will see you all tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Think About It Thursdays. All right. Sure. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Now go out, get into some good trouble or some feel good trouble. I don't know. It's the brand new year, okay? The afterbirth ain't even washed off this baby yet, okay? Okay.